today we're going to be taking a look at my wife's 2005 E53 Series X5. Her car currently is experiencing a flickering battery light when we start up the car. And you might also have a flickering battery light that either comes on when you're just starting the car, or sometimes it can come and go intermittently, which is, can be a signal that an alternator or battery is failing. And it could also just stay on a solid red and not flicker at all, which could also indicate either the battery or the alternator is failing. Thankfully, my wife noticed that the light was flickering, which is unusual, and it shouldn't flicker at all. Basically, when she starts the car, you can see it flickering below the gas gauge here, and I'll show you guys what that looks like right now. Okay, let's go ahead and start the car, and let's take a closer look at the corner here right below the gas gauge and look for that very faint flickering on startup. Now, in order to diagnose what's going on with the charging system in the car, the first thing you want to think about is how old is the battery, when was the last time it was replaced, and how old is the alternator, when was the last time that was replaced. To diagnose what's going on, first we're going to check and see what voltage is at the battery. Anything slightly above 12 volts should be good. Something like 12.3, 12.5 is normal. Anything below 12 volts in the 8, 9, 10, or even 11, low 11 range is going to be an indicator that the battery is either bad or needs to be charged because the alternator failed and then the car was running off the battery alone. So there could be several different things at play. Then we're going to start the car and let it run at idle, and also give it some gas at various RPMs and see how much voltage is coming out of our handheld computer here, and this will show us the voltage level while the car is running. And while the car is running, anywhere between 13 and 14 volts is normal. Usually they're around 13.5 to 13.8. Anything significantly below or above that is an indicator that the alternator is starting to fail. Now, one of the easiest way to check the battery voltage and the voltage output from the alternator while the car is running is to use a scan tool that connects to the OBD2 port right here. And basically what you're going to need is something that has the capability of telling you some of the data stream information, such as this Creator, or however you pronounce this. Yeah, Creator C310 Plus. And I've talked about this scan tool in other videos. This one I purchased on Amazon for something like 60 bucks, and I definitely recommend it. For the money, it's very useful. So let's turn on the ignition here, and we'll go through some of the menus. Make sure this is on all the way. Okay, so let's take a look at our menus. Obviously the car is off right now, it's not running. So our first test is going to be to check out the data stream info for the battery and see what our voltage is for the battery. So here is X series. This is an E53 X5. Driver. Okay, DME. Okay, so let's navigate down to read data stream. And let's see, engine operating data. Hit enter. This might take a minute. Alright, here we go. As you can see, page 1 of 6. So I'm going to have to slowly navigate through all of these different data outputs here until we find the battery voltage. I know it's in here because I've seen it before. All of these things are not useful for us right now. The one downside to the scan tool is that it is a little slow when you're just trying to navigate through all of the data here. There's a little bit of latency between when you press the button and it, scrolling through to the next data point. Okay, there it is. Battery voltage, 11.6 volts. Now if you remember at the beginning of this video, I said that a healthy battery is going to be around 12. It should be around 12.3, 12.5, something like that. So this is below what this is a 12 volt system, obviously. It's a little low, and I'm going to go ahead and replace the battery and start there. But before we do that, I'm also going to start the car, and let's take a look and see what the running voltage is. See if that flickering is happening. Here's the voltage with the car running. As you can see, we're showing about 13.9. It's sort of fluctuating between 13.7 to 13.9, which is pretty good. It's a good indication that the alternator is working right now. If this voltage, battery voltage, while the car is running was showing something like maybe in the 15 or 16 range, or significantly below the 13, like in the 11s or 10, we would know for sure that something is going on with the alternator. But right now it seems to be okay. There's not too much fluctuation in that voltage, but I could be wrong. This could be just the beginning stages of an alternator failure. So we're gonna, at the very least, start with replacing the battery on this car. The battery in this car is about, I think, 6 years old at least, and the service life is typically only 5 or 6 years on a battery, so we'll go ahead and get that replaced right now. Here's the old battery. It's about 5 or 6 years old. And here is the new Autocraft Platinum battery with 850 cold cranking amps at 0 degrees and 1000 cold cranking amps at 32. And if you're wondering, this is an AGM battery since it's the Platinum, and the size is an H7. Alright, moment of truth. Let's see if the flicker is gone. Let me zoom in here a little bit. Not sure if you guys can see this, but it looks like the flickering is still there. So I'm going to go ahead and say that this probably needs to have the alternator replaced. And it looks like that will be the next job. Okay, I think I see the reason why this alternator has failed prematurely. As you can see here, our power steering fluid reservoir, the lines are leaking, and there's a lot of fluid leaking down internally into that alternator, and it's causing it to slowly fail. Here's another look at all of that fluid leaking down into the alternator, and it looks like we are going to need to replace our power steering reservoir as well as the two lines, and that fluid has also leaked onto this coolant hose back here over time, causing the rubber to expand here, which is at risk for failure. So we'll also replace this coolant hose. Okay, so it is the next day. I just finished installing that new alternator, which, as you can see from the previous clip, was completely soaked in power steering fluid, because those power steering lines were leaking from the reservoir right on top of that alternator. So far the battery, the voltage was low and it was old, so I don't regret replacing that, but that was not the source of our flickering battery light. Once I looked under the hood and I inspected that alternator and I saw it soaked in the power steering fluid, I thought for sure that was the issue. So I replaced the alternator and a few other things that broke along the way, and a few other while you're in there parts, and here is the result. I don't know if you guys can see this, but that battery light is still flickering, unfortunately. Let's see, I don't know if this will show up on this iPhone video here. There it is, flickering away. So after doing some more research, I have determined that our culprit might actually be the ignition switch. And the ignition switch is actually located under this plastic trim column here, behind here. And I'm gonna go ahead and replace that now with a FEBI unit. And this is aftermarket, but it is made in Germany, so it should be decent. The one that's in here now I actually replaced when we first got the car with, it was back in 2015, and I installed a genuine BMW version, and that was one of my early videos, which I'll maybe show some clips right here of the installation process. So I'm going to go ahead and try the ignition switch, which hopefully is actually the reason why we're getting that flickering battery light issue. And I have seen on some of the other BMW forums mentioning that that's actually been the source of the problem, and it wasn't the alternator, nor was it the battery. So I'll install this and then give you guys another update, and hopefully this is resolving the issue. Alright guys, here is the old ignition switch. As you can see here with the roundel, this is a genuine BMW part, and I think I paid like over $100 for this and installed it in 2015. Actually November 2015, because I made a tutorial video on this part, and I will link to that complete tutorial somewhere here in this video, or maybe at the end of the video. Now down here, as you can see, that's where the new ignition switch was installed. And let's go ahead and start the car and see if finally the flickering is gone. Alright guys, there you have it. The flickering battery light issue is completely resolved, and it was all thanks to the $57 aftermarket ignition switch that I have just installed. This guy here, the FEBI, made in Germany. This guy was $57, and the BMW one, the genuine one, you can see with the roundel, this one failed in 4 short years. Actually, this coming November will be 4 years for this switch. And I think we installed it around 120,000 miles or something. So yeah, the car is finally resolved. This is fixed. And this just goes to show you guys, sometimes these electrical gremlins can haunt you and cause you to throw money and parts at a car unnecessarily. As always, I hope this video helped you out. If it did, please click that like button, subscribe, and let me know in the comments below what you guys are working on.